When doing system of equation word problems, it's important to find all your important information in the problem and just sort of highlight that. So I'm going to read through this problem. We're going to underline the important pieces of information for each situation that shows up. We're talking about a state fair, a popular field trip destination. That's not important at all. This year, the senior class of high school A and senior class of high school B both planned the trips there. Again, that information is just sort of fluff. The senior class of high school A rented and filled 5 vans and 14 buses. So that is an important piece of information. And they filled it with 388 students. So again, that is another important piece of information. Now, in the second situation, let's talk about high school B. It filled 5 vans and 9 buses with 278 students. All of these are the important things that we need to know in this to set it up. The question that they ask is every van had the same number of students in it, and so did the buses. Find the number of students in each van and in each bus. So what we want to do is set up 2 equations because we have 2 variables, the capacity of a van and the capacity of a bus, and we're going to find both of those variables with those 2 equations. So the first one is 5 times the number of students inside a van plus 14 times the number of students inside a bus would be equal to 388 students. There are 388 students who went on this trip total. In the second one, high school B, we again have 5 vans and we have 9 buses, but this time we only have 278. We have less buses, so we of course have less students. Now we have to assume that the buses and the vans are each filled to capacity with the same number of students, so that's just a situational thing. This is a pretty easy problem because you can notice that the V's in the front are the same, the 5 V's. There are 5 vans in each situation. So we can go ahead and eliminate those using subtraction pretty simply. So 5 minus 5 is 0. Now 14 minus 9 will get me that there is a difference of 5 buses between the 2 schools is equal to, and then we'll have to calculate out 388 minus 278, which is 110 students. So on the 5 extra buses that school A had, there are 110 extra students. Now what we want to do is just simply divide both sides by 5, and B would equal to 22. Now that number B, or the letter B, represents the number of students on each bus. So there are 22 students on each bus. In order to find out how many students are on each van, what we need to do is plug B back into either of the original equations. And I think the smaller numbers in number 2 are a little bit easier to use. So we'd say 5 times V plus 9 times the 22 students that are on each one of those buses is equal to the total of 278 students. Now this is a pretty simple equation to solve. We want to just go through and multiply the 9 times the 22 here to get 198 is equal to 278, and of course we bring down the 5 vans. Subtract off 198 from both sides, and 278 minus 198 is going to be an 80 is equal to the 5 vans. And then of course we divide both sides by the 5, and 80 divided by 5 is 16, so we'd have 16 students in each van. So that's a big van and kind of a small bus. Anyway, this is the situation. It asks you the number of students in each van and each bus. There are 16 students in each van, and there are 22 students on each bus. Now, this is not the only type of situation they have. Another common one is the school fundraiser. And if you look at this, it says Danielle and Catherine are selling wrapping paper for a school fundraiser, a common situation. Customers can buy rolls of plain or rolls of shiny, so those are different types of rolls. Now we start finding the important information. Danielle sold 13 rolls of plain and 11 rolls of shiny for a total of 177. So if we were going to write out a situation for this, an equation to represent this situation, we'd have 13 rolls of plain paper, and then we'd have 11 rolls of shiny paper is equal to $177. That's how much she got. Catherine sold 14 rolls of plain paper, which is 14p, and then 1 roll of shiny paper, apparently it wasn't as popular with her, is equal to, and she made a total of $93. So Catherine was not as productive as Danielle was in this wrapping paper fundraiser. Now we have a system of equations. We have two variables, we have two equations, so this is very solvable. What we need to do is get it so that the equations are similar to each other, where the numbers in front of either the p's or the s's are the same. And I can do that relatively easily by multiplying the bottom equation by 11. That'll make these things the same, the 11 and the 1 the same. Now, what we are going to do is rewrite the original equations, 13p plus 11s equals 177, and then of course we are going to distribute the 11 to the other equation. 11 times 14 is going to give me 154p, and then 11 times 1 is equal to 11s, and then 11 times 93 is going to give me 1023. Now these are very large numbers, but you'll notice that as I work this problem out, those numbers will become smaller again. Now whenever I look at my new equations, I can go ahead and subtract them. The s's are going to cancel because the 11's are the same. And we're going to get some negative numbers from the other subtraction, but that's not a real big deal. We could say 13 minus 154, and that's going to get me negative 141p. And then 177 minus the 1023 is going to give me negative 846. This is my new equation, which is very simple to solve, and I'll divide both sides by 141. And negative 846 divided by 141 is just plain old 6. Of course, that is a negative 141. So, a thing of paper, or plain wrapping paper, is $6. Now, what we want to do is find out how much the shiny wrapping paper costs. So I'm going to go ahead and plug that $6 back into either one of the original equations. This time I'm going to pick the bottom equation because it has a few smaller numbers, and it should make it a little bit easier. So when I plug it in, I'll have $14, or 14 rolls, times the $6 per roll for plain paper, plus 1 roll times the number of dollars per roll is equal to $93. And this should be a relatively simple calculation. So we'd multiply out the 14 times 6, and we'd have 84 plus s is equal to 93. Of course, we subtract off 84 from both sides, and then s would be equal to 9. So the cost of a shiny roll is $9. The question that it finally asked me at the end is the cost of each roll, and I think we can clearly see that plain is 6 and shiny is 9.